My name is Evelyn Mendez, and I'm a Major General in the United States Army. You'd think a title like that would mean something to your own family. It didn't. I found out about my sister's wedding the way strangers do, through someone else's Instagram story. A mutual friend had tagged her in a photo, Danielle Monroe spinning in a lace gown beneath fairy lights, smiling up at a man I didn't recognize. I wasn't in any of the photos, not even a courtesy tag, no text, no email, not even a call. The caption read, "She said yes, Bosh at Monroe Wedding 2023. My thumb hovered over the screen. Beneath it, dozens of heart emojis from people I barely remembered, and one from my mother. My father had reposted it with a caption about family, legacy, and love. The same family that hadn't spoken my name in years unless it was whispered with tension. When the wedding invite finally came, it wasn't addressed to me. It said, "The Mendez family," as if I were a ghost haunting their records. The note inside was cold, formal, sterile. No RSVP card, just a QR code and one line from my mother. "If you come, wear beige or gray. Nothing loud." That was my welcome. I didn't plan to go. But something shifted. Because when a family works that hard to erase you, maybe showing up is the loudest thing you can do. And that's exactly what I did. What none of them knew was that this time I wouldn't be alone. And when the time came, one man would rise from the front row, salute, and call me Major General. And just like that, the room would fall silent. The envelope arrived 3 days before the wedding. It was thick, cream-colored, lined with silver foil, and sealed with a gold-embossed M. No name, no handwritten note, just a printed insert with Danielle and her fiancé Matthew's names in cursive script, a vineyard location in Hudson Valley, and a QR code for RSVP. I scanned the page again. Nothing that even suggested I was personally invited, just a line printed in small italics at the bottom. Formal attire. Prefer neutral tones. I wouldn't have gone. Not out of bitterness, but because by then I had accepted that I wasn't part of that world anymore. My parents had worked hard to forget me. Danielle, even harder. But that night, while I stood in the low light of my kitchen, a secure signal pinged on the encrypted band I still wore. Out of habit, maybe, or hope. It came from Jason Carter, a friend I hadn't heard from in nearly 2 years. Once my field second, now private intelligence consultant out of D.C. The message was simple. They erased you, he didn't. Check your back channel. I opened the military-grade comm app buried behind 6 levels of security on my personal tablet. One unread entry, a short, anonymous line of text. "If you still care about your sister, be there. Someone's already watching her." I read it twice. And suddenly, not going wasn't an option. The drive to Hudson Valley was 4 hours of pure autumn. Winding roads through crisp leaves, golden hills, and the kind of curated countryside that felt like a postcard pretending to be real. The Monroe family had spared no expense. Of course they hadn't. I wore slate gray, not to please my mother, but to disappear. The uniform I'd earned was folded in the back of my car, locked away in its sealed garment bag. No one greeted me when I arrived. The valet gave me a polite nod, took the rental car without a word, and gestured toward the grand estate ahead. Stone columns, ivy-covered arches, and a white tent that screamed money without saying a word. The check-in table sat beneath a crystal chandelier. 2 young women in earpieces tapped on silver iPads. A sign behind them read, "Welcome to the Monroe Hartwell wedding." I approached, calm, even. One woman glanced up. "Name?" "Evelyn Mendez." Her fingers froze. She scrolled, frowned, then typed again, slower. "I'm sorry, I don't see that name on the list. Are you with the Hartwell family?" "I'm the bride's sister." A pause. Her eyes flicked to her partner, who immediately stepped away and returned with a supervisor, a woman in a tailored black blazer with a headset and a rehearsed smile. "Miss Mendez," she said, "this way, please." No apology, no explanation, just a pivot and a purposeful walk. They led me not to the main reception area, but to a side vestibule marked overflow seating. My seat was near the back exit, far enough to be out of frame, close enough to hear the music. I took it without a word. 10 minutes later, my mother arrived. Judith Monroe, dressed in winter white with pearls, her French twist perfect. She saw me but didn't stop. Only when she'd passed and circled back did she pause. "You came," she said. I did. She eyed my outfit, then gave a curt nod. "At least you dressed appropriately." No hug, no warmth, just an inspection. Then came my father, Frank Monroe. He caught my presence mid-conversation with a groomsman, paused, nodded once like acknowledging a stray coat rack, and walked on. I looked to the far end of the room. Danielle hadn't arrived yet, but the guests were pouring in. Laughter, champagne, the smell of lavender and burnt sugar in the air. And that's when I saw him. Across the room, leaning near the fireplace, a man in a muted gray suit stood with one elbow resting casually on a marble mantel. He didn't belong. I could tell by his posture. Not tense, but alert. And when our eyes met, even just briefly, something passed between us. Recognition. It wasn't just me watching anymore. Someone else was watching too. And suddenly, I wasn't just an uninvited guest anymore. I was exactly where I needed to be. Danielle entered in a shimmer of ivory and soft perfume, her gown trailing behind her like a cloud of curated innocence. A photographer followed her every step. Her smile looked effortless, practiced. She passed right by me, no glance, no flicker of recognition, as if I were a stranger who just happened to be seated too close to the exit. For a moment, I almost let that be the end of it, until I saw the microphone. It had been repositioned, subtly but deliberately, moved 6 feet forward, rewired along a separate cord. The tech vendor at the sound station was wearing a different brand polo than the rest of the team, and then there was the waiter. Black vest, white gloves, name tag read, L. Daniels. Except the catering company I overheard earlier was Pine Grove Events, and none of their team wore personalized name tags. It was too clean, too perfect. And in the world I live in, that's exactly when things start to go wrong. Jason emerged near the cocktail bar, half-shadowed by a potted ficus. "Tell me you saw it," he muttered. "I saw 3 things I don't like." "Good, because I scanned the AV rack earlier. Someone inserted a proxy audio relay, military pattern, but sloppy. It's masking DoD encryption, but not well." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a velvet box the size of a metal case, and pressed it into my hand. "Temporary authority reinstated," he said. "Your call, General." I slipped the box into my clutch without opening it. The bridal suite was quiet when I entered. Too quiet. Soft candlelight danced against the walls, and in the center of the room stood Danielle, gazing at herself in a full-length mirror, one hand adjusting the thin strap of her gown. She saw me through the reflection. Her posture stiffened. "You're not supposed to be in here," she said, voice clipped. "You weren't supposed to be broadcasting encrypted military signals through your dress," I replied. Her face faltered, just slightly. "Excuse me?" I traced the relay, the signals coming from inside the fabric. Her mouth opened, then shut, and for the first time in years, I saw something real cross her face. Not defiance. Fear. She turned toward me, voice quieter now. "I didn't know." "Then show me the hem." "No," she snapped. "This is my wedding. I don't care what alphabet agency you think you're still part of. You don't get to ruin this. I'm not here as a soldier." "Exactly," she hissed. "You're not anything anymore." The words hit like they were meant to bruise, but I didn't move, didn't react. I waited. And after a long, stuttering silence, she finally broke. "There's something wrong with it, isn't there?" "Yes." She turned, lifted the edge of her train, and held it toward me with trembling fingers. I knelt slowly, hands steady, slipping on a pair of gloves from my clutch. I peeled back the tool, layer by layer, until I reached the inner seam of the bodice lining. There, stitched with metallic thread into a barely noticeable fold, was a coin-sized sensor embedded near the hip. Its surface pulsed faintly, active, designed to look harmless, lethal in the right network. Who gave you this dress? I asked, already knowing the answer. Danielle's voice was shaky. It came through a sponsor. A friend of Matt's firm. Said it was couture. A gift. A gift, I repeated, holding the scanner near the thread. The device buzzed once. DoD signature, foreign routing path, masked timestamps. Danielle, this isn't about you. She sat down hard on the velvet bench, shoulders curling in. I thought you'd ruin everything, she whispered. No, I said softly. I came to save it. We worked fast. Jason intercepted a data packet from the mic stand. 3 seconds of compressed signal, encoded with falsified logs from an operation I knew too well. It wasn't just surveillance. It was a narrative rewrite. In real time, someone was erasing history and replacing it with their own version, one where I had failed. One where I had disobeyed orders and caused civilian casualties. The same lie that got me stripped of command 6 years ago in Fallujah. Jason traced the signal's endpoint. Encrypted node, political group, registered out of DC, names familiar. ARC Initiative, I felt my stomach knot. That name hadn't come up in years. The last time it did, it led back to Benjamin Rusk, my former superior, the man who left me to take the fall. He wasn't just watching, he was orchestrating. And if the wedding was his cover, for transmission, for the signal, for the story rewrite, then Danielle wasn't a bride. She was bait. The ceremony began just as scheduled, down to the minute, because of course it did. I was still seated in the overflow section, tucked between a coat rack and the utility door. From that vantage point, I saw the whole picture. The crisp white chairs, the string quartet, the polished guests leaning forward in unison. Danielle walked down the aisle on my father's arm like she'd rehearsed this moment for years. She looked radiant. She didn't look back. My mother sat in the front row, her posture perfect, eyes forward like a commander on parade. I could have vanished into thin air, and no one in that family would have noticed. But I wasn't the only one watching. Jason stood near the wall, blending into a crowd of older guests. His stance was casual, but his eyes tracked every detail. A slight nod told me the signal was still live. The mic was transmitting. The relay, sewn into Danielle's dress, was still pulsing. And we had minutes. The officiant took the podium and cleared his throat. Before we begin this union, we'd like to invite any veterans in attendance to stand and be recognized. The moment stretched. Then Jason stood up from the third row. His suit was neat, tie slightly loosened, hands steady. He turned slowly, with intention, and then, in a voice loud enough to command attention, but quiet enough to be respectful, he saluted. Major General Evelyn Mendez, ma'am. The air changed. You could feel it before anyone moved. The music softened. The tension in the room thickened like fog rolling across glass. A woman near the aisle gasped. Someone dropped their program. Phones lowered, heads turned. Even Danielle looked back, right at me. For the first time that day, maybe the first time in years, she actually saw me. I rose. Not slowly, not cautiously. My heels hit the marble floor like punctuation marks in a sentence I'd waited 6 years to finish. Each step down that aisle carved silence from disbelief. And then I saw him. Benjamin Rusk, second row, navy suit, civilian smile. The same calm predator who once called me a liability and buried my commendation under layers of political smog. Our eyes met. He didn't blink. He didn't need to. He knew. The ballroom was already prepped. We'd hijacked the AV feed with seconds to spare. Guests filtered in post-ceremony, unaware that the curated slideshow was just a placeholder. Jason gave the signal. I tapped the transmitter. The slideshow blinked. Once, twice. Then it vanished. In its place, raw logs, black and white combat footage, heat maps, and one chilling file name. Vanguard@backup.exe. Saner, B. Rusk, FD-13, gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the audio. My voice, from the Fallujah op. Calm, measured. Civilian presence confirmed. Override initiated. Alpha team, move now. Gunfire, Screams, body cam footage of me dragging a child through concrete dust. A second voice, Rusk's. Let her take the fallout, she's replaceable. The reaction was immediate. Confused whispers, people rising from their chairs. My mother stared at the screen as if it might shatter her reality. My father sat rigid. Danielle's champagne flute trembled in her hand. And Rusk? He sprang into motion, pulling a leather folder from his coat. This is a cease and detain order, he said to the room. She accessed classified materials. No, I said, stepping forward. This is what you've spent 6 years trying to erase. Jason flipped the mic feed again. A new voice cut in, clear, decisive. My name is Derek Shaw, it said. A man stood near the back, press badge visible. I was there. That's me in the evac footage. Rusk delayed the call. Evelyn Mendez disobeyed him and saved us. Silence. Then, cameras, phones, murmurs turning into shouts. Before Rusk could move again, 2 federal agents entered the room, jackets open, badges out. Mr. Rusk, one said, you are under federal investigation for falsifying national defense intelligence. He opened his mouth, but behind them, standing in the doorway, was my father. And he was looking at me, really looking, not through me, not past me, at me. The ballroom emptied slowly, like breath leaving lungs after a storm. No one danced, no one toasted. The footage played on a loop, flickering across the walls. Body cam video, infrared scans, Rusk's voice ordering hesitation, mine defying him. Outside, reporters waited. Inside, silence lingered. In a private lounge behind the reception hall, Rusk sat slouched in a leather chair, jaw tight, suit rumpled. His power was unraveling in real time. Jason stood by the window, arms crossed, watching. I faced Rusk, holding the old field laptop in my hands, the one I'd retrieved from beneath the estate hours before, hidden behind a service panel. A secure sandbox node, untouched, uncorrupted. It held everything. Original Vanguard files, chain of command logs, voice records, all of it authenticated. He didn't try to stop me. He knew it was over. You gambled I'd stay silent, I said. But silence only protects the guilty. He scoffed. You were always a wild card. No, I replied. I was the truth you couldn't control. I pressed play on one final file, log 47B. His voice, recorded days before Fallujah, came through with sickening clarity. If this goes south, she takes the hit. No reason to burn the rest of command. Rusk's jaw twitched. For the first time, he looked small. The door opened behind us. 2 federal agents entered. One handed me a folded confirmation. Emergency clearance reinstated, records restored, investigation opened. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Justice didn't roar. It whispered. As they cuffed Rusk and read his rights, I looked toward the doorway. My father stood there, still in his wedding suit, hands clenched. He didn't speak, but this time he didn't look away. He watched as the man who had once erased me was finally removed from the room. And I stayed. The next morning, the Monroe family kitchen looked exactly as I remembered it, and nothing like before. Sunlight stretched across the granite island, soft and golden. The coffee pot bubbled faintly. A plate of cinnamon rolls rested on the counter, untouched but warm. For a moment, I stood in the doorway, unsure whether I was meant to step in. Danielle looked up from the table. No makeup, hair loosely tied back. Her wedding dress was gone. So was the distance in her eyes. I saved your seat, she said. She had pulled out the old corner chair, the one I used to sit in as a teenager, always angled near the exit. She didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. I sat. Jason nursed a mug of coffee beside me, sleeves rolled up, eyes tired but steady. My mother, Judith, stood at the counter, pouring cream into a second cup, mine. Just the way I used to take it before war and protocol turned everything black and bitter. She placed the mug in front of me. Her hands trembled just slightly. You're wrinkled, she murmured, brushing down the lapel of my jacket. Her fingers lingered a beat too long, as if trying to smooth something she couldn't name. I didn't flinch. I let her. My father entered last. He looked older in morning light, like something had drained out of him overnight. He buttered toast with quiet concentration, said nothing, but every few minutes his eyes flicked toward me, and didn't look away. No apologies, no grand speeches, just presence. It was enough. We ate in silence, not awkward, but reverent, like we were relearning the rhythm of one another. Halfway through breakfast, small footsteps padded across the hardwood. A little girl peeked around the corner, clutching something small in her hand. Danielle smiled. "Evelyn, this is Jenna, Matt's niece. She stayed here last night." Jenna stepped forward slowly and placed a tiny pearl-studded daisy pin on the table beside me. "My dad said you're the reason he came home." My throat tightened. I picked up the pin, fastened it to my lapel, and nodded. "Then your dad's a good man?" She grinned and disappeared into the living room. Outside, the world moved on. But inside this kitchen, something had changed. Not loudly, but unmistakably. I was no longer the ghost on the guest list. I was back. And for the first time in years, no one needed to say I belonged at that table. Because I already knew I did.